day after the night after. It's the morning of the day. It's Sunday morning. We did the night ride Friday night, Saturday morning. Little explainer, this video will have very little footage from the actual event itself, and it's because of a number of reasons. It was quite cold. My hands were soaking wet. In other words, my gloves were very wet. Getting them on and off was quite difficult. And I was just enjoying myself too much. And it was just... And of course I went through some bad patches, footage, and of course it was dark. So it was very little footage from just riding through some lanes. This into a bit of context. If this is the first time you're watching one of my videos, then welcome. My name's Ed, nice to meet you. Bit of a strange situation, we're on a train right now, but I am actually going somewhere to ride my bike. As you can see, it's dark outside. It's just started raining as well, actually. But we're going to do a 300-kilometer nighttime Audax. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I basically ride my bike for my life, basically, and I have done for the last kind of 8 years. But this is the first time I've ever done an Audax. In fact, this is the first time I've ever done a ride of 300 kilometers. I think it's the first ride I've ever done over 250k. But anyway, enough of that. It's actually the first time I've ridden through the night as well. So tonight is a night for firsts. But hopefully, well, it's definitely not going to be the first time and I'm going to hit the wall. I anticipate that could happen at some point tonight or tomorrow morning, whichever way you look at it. But anyway, I hope you enjoy this video. It's a little bit of something completely different. Like, yes, I do hill climbs, yes, I do road races, but this is brand new. As well as it could start, to be honest. We rolled up to Bristol and it was just carnage, pretty much, as we encountered, drunk people and whatnot. It was Friday night going through Bristol and through Bath as well, so you could expect to, bump into people, I guess. But once we got out into the countryside, it was just like, it was incredible. There was nothing, there was no cars, no light pollution. It was just like a great place to be. I didn't really prepare for this event. Like, obviously I've done the National Hill Climb Championships, I've trained for hill climbs. I've also, kept myself ticking over and been doing Zwift races and things like that, but I've not been doing any long distance. The longest race I've ever done, I think, is around about 250k, and that was a stage of the Tour Korea a few years ago. But in just training or in just normal rides, I think the only thing I've ever done is 200k. So this was, a big step up from that. So, I mean, the best place to start is the start. I mean, we had some great support there. The Audax community in Bristol is quite a big one, so it was well organised. And at the start venue we had like a bike shop. There was maintenance there if we needed it. There was lots of people around heating cake and coffee and fueling up and getting ready to go. I couldn't believe how many riders there were. There was something like 100 odd riders taking part. And I was riding with two kind of more experienced guys who have ridden TCR. They have big aims and big goals in that ultra distance, ultra endurance bike racing category. And they've both got vast knowledge on the subject. So Chris Herbert and Darren Franks were there. Both made the journey from London, so I jumped on their wheels and rode with them. And it actually ended up being the four of us, just me and those two, and then Steve Thomas. So in terms of equipment, like, I didn't really know what to bring and what to expect. I mean, at the end of the day, it's only 300k, but I didn't know what to expect because it was at night. Like, this was the thing. It's all very well good doing 300k in a day, like you have it all day and it's light and that's your natural body clock. But doing it at night is just the other end of the spectrum. So I packed for the worst case scenario, and I have some of my stuff here with me in my bag, which I thought I'd bring along to show you. So I had like spare lights, and the lights I was using, front lights at least, were on the most part exposure. I borrowed one from Chris as well, thank you Chris. Extremely good, lasted the whole ride, so that was probably 8 hours of riding in the dark. On low beam we had some hot hands hand warmers. Didn't use them, but they were there in case I needed them. Some hydro tabs, which are great for replacing electrolytes, because you sweat even at night. Toilet roll in a money bag. This was needed. Well, it wasn't needed, but it was needed in case it was needed. You never know. I've heard many an accident has happened. We had a little bag with some paracetamol, there was a multivitamin in here, and some hand gel. And then my battery pack situation. So I had 2 battery packs, only because one of them wasn't that strong. Turns out I didn't actually need to use them to charge my phone at all, because I just switched my phone off. But I did use it to charge my Wahoo, the Bolt. Once I added like 10% battery on just to be sure. It probably would have lasted, but because the backlight was on the whole time, that was draining it quite quickly. So I had some battery packs on all my cables as well here, which are actually quite heavy, so something I would rethink next time. And that was it. That's all that was in my my spare gloves were in my top tube bag, which was a Torpeak to 3 litre top tube bag, which was perfect really. That was the equipment really. To be fair, I was wearing a lot of kit. Like my upper body was long sleeve merino base layer, short sleeve jersey, a long sleeve kind of a Gabba style jacket, and then a Rafa like soft shell long sleeve jacket, which is like bomb proof, and I've had it for years and years, and I only really wear it when, you know, worst case scenario arises. And then a rain cape, just a casual rain cape over the top if I needed it. So a lot of layers there, but those layers, like, I could always, you know, add and take away depending on what was happening. But to be fair, I pretty much wore all of them because my heart rate only sat around kind of 110, 120 beats a minute for a lot of the ride. You know, there was no like big effort, so I wasn't really sweating or feeling uncomfortable at any point. So some of you will know how odd axes work. You generally have control points or like checkpoints where you have to have your card stamped, your brevet card, or they ask you to pick up a receipt in a petrol station to just as a checkpoint to make sure you've been there and that sort of thing. So many of them we stopped in many petrol station, but I would generally pick up some sweets or Coke or something I fancied. But in terms of nutrition, like I didn't have like a strategy. Just like eat whenever I wanted, I suppose, but within reason. Like, you don't want stuff that's like super high in fat and it's gonna take an age to digest and it's gonna make you feel uncomfortable. So I stuck to simple things that I knew, like sugary cola bottles, Coke. Funny thing is, I didn't crave anything salty. I suppose it's not long enough, and it's funny because it's a nighttime ride. Like your whole kind of craving system doesn't really work. I wasn't really like craving anything. So we got to like the halfway point, which we had a beautiful ride along the seafront via Bournemouth and to get to Poole, which is the halfway point, 155k, which I think we did in like just over 5 hours.
In the Bristol.
What, from home to the event?
Yeah, about 25k.
But you knew that it is mad, isn't it?
I know.
Madness.
Yeah, that's a beast, that was.
So no wonder you probably haven't done that since, yeah. Well, you've been doing the hill climb.
Yeah, I did the hill climbs, yeah. And then we're a national champion there.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
What's that? It's not the rain coming down not, is it?
That the rain is
Well, honestly, it is meant to stop. Like,
well, the way I feel, I just gonna blow a piece of it in about half an hour.
3:15.
Good minute.
In the AM.
Last time I stayed at this late was in Yorkshire, in the Worlds.
Oh, you ran up to it?
Yeah, with Reese.
Oh, nice.
Fuck me. You don't race. He's
Okay, I thought maybe it's the youth in me.
It's the 6 layers.
It might be the 6 layers as well, but I don't know.
Would you like something to eat? They've got some jacket potatoes, the big sausages, vegetarian sausages, mushrooms, baked beans.
Even if it's something small,
Yes.
at least it'll be hot. Yeah, I'll just have
She
some.
doesn't want me to bring a plate of stuff.
Yeah, it can do.
Are you vegetarian?
No, I'll eat anything.
Then there was like a big stint from there to the next checkpoint. It was like 70 or 80k. It turns out like most of it was on lanes, and I didn't really have enough food. And I get onto this as like my low point, my high point, but I didn't really have enough food for that section. Weather could have been better, but I think it added to the experience. Like particularly that first. I'd say like we did the first 20k and it was dry, and then I think for the next 130k it just rained and it was 1 degree, and we got to that halfway checkpoint, and this was probably like one of the lows. I think it was 2 lows really. This was one of the lows, and that was kind of restarting from that, because we just sat there for about 45 minutes at that halfway point having food and having a coffee.
see if I can take the radiator with me.
If you can get it on, perfect. You don't have to drink it.
Thank you. I sort of feel like it'd be rude not to at least try and pull the radiator off the wall.
do it.
Cold beef made box it's so nasty.
Oh, it's not a race.
Want my iron.
And that was at 3:30 in the morning, and it was pretty horrendous then. Part 2 of the horrendous section was like in that next kind of segment. So I think from maybe 4 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock or 6:30, I really suffered, and I think it's part of like a road racer's ability to hide that suffering, to not show it, but I don't know whether it came across. You'd have to ask Darren and Chris and those guys, but I got to a point where I was like a switch flicked. It wasn't that I mentally started to think, I can't do this. It was more of a case of, this is starting to get like a long time now, and I'm starting to get not so much bored, but that's a word that comes to mind, but I just wanted some other stimulus. Like it was just like this constant dark, wet, cold place that you were in, that you just wanted to change. You wanted to see things, you wanted daylight to come, and you wanted a bit of entertainment. And I think that cracked me a little bit, and I had to stop for a pee at the side of the road, and I said to the boys, you keep going, I'll catch you up. Now this was about 190k, and I remember thinking to myself, yeah, I'll catch him up, no problem. But it's different doing 190k and like trying to get back onto a group than it is like doing it on a Sunday or Saturday club ride when you're only doing like 50k. Your freshness and your state of mind is completely different, and this is something that I learned. One of the things I learned from this ride is that you have to learn to pace yourself and take things and not take things for granted. It took me around about 15k to get back to them, and in doing so, like I literally just rode zone 2, If I rode any harder, I knew that I'd potentially blow. And if I blew with 100k to go, that would not be good. So I took it steady, and they did eventually ease up for me, and I got back to them. But it was like I was fully prepared to keep riding on my own. You know, I could see them in the distance, see their red lights, but I thought I'd never get back to them. They were constantly there, teasing me. I felt like I was super hungry, and I didn't have anything. But this is part of teaching your body some things that you may never experience anywhere else. And you know, we all go through these situations, but I was hungry, but I knew that I wasn't actually exerting myself. You know, you're sitting well below that line of, you know, actually going anywhere hard. I'm just kind of sitting, it's all one's on two, I'm just plodding through calories. There's nothing urgent about, you know, I can maintain this pace. Your body's got enough fat stores for days of exercise. As long as I just plod, I'll be fine.
$235k done.
I think we're all getting a little bit tired and sore. Something else I've learned from this as well is that my body today, just like, I feel like I need to walk. Like I feel like I need to walk 10 miles to stretch myself out, because my knees are like really sore, or they feel sore anyway, when I kind of get out of a sitting position. So if I was to get off this bench now, my knees would be sore when I'd actually make that first movement. My shoulders or my upper back is probably the more sore of anything. I've had a tension headache this morning because holding my head up the whole time, obviously on the ride. I was getting to the point during the ride where I was like, I'm gonna have to ride on the front for a bit longer just so that I can kind of rest my head down. And I feel like it was a great opportunity for me to pursue something and to try something that I've never done before. And you know, it's been a good year, and to kind of finish it off with like that mini event, as I'll call it, at 300k Audax through the night is a great thing to take off the bucket list. And you know, I kind of encourage as many people as possible to try things that, you know, I may be in their space of interest, but you might not have ever thought of doing it before. And you know, this is something now that hopefully I can, you know, take into next year. I can maybe do a couple of ultra endurance rides next year during the season that kind of fit in if I've got a free month or free 3 weeks, which does happen actually. Would I do it again? 100% yes, I'd do it again. And I was told that if I could get through that, which was probably the worst conditions you could have for a night ride, plus in November, then I could probably get through a lot of you know, kind of smaller or middle tier ultra endurance rides or races that are on the calendar. So I take some confidence in that and some pride in that.
Take a look at my shoes on the bike. Don't even look at it. It's horrible. Horrible. Horrible, horrible. So yeah, that just about ends our first ever Audax. I don't actually feel that bad. I genuinely don't feel that bad. It's strange. Like I've been awake for, well, over 24 hours. I've had like a 15-minute nap yesterday, but it doesn't feel like jet lag.
Platform 2 of the
Doesn't feel like jet lag.
1209 Great Western Railway service to Swansea. Calling at Newport, Cardiff Central, Bridgend, Portsmouth, Parkway, Leeds and